Before becoming a hub for homeless encampments, Kensington was once one of the wealthiest places and a leading global manufacturing hub, producing more carpets than Great Britain and Ireland combined. But how did this industrial powerhouse transform into a drug hub, a haven for homelessness and addiction, the murder capital, and one of the poorest neighborhoods in the US? The decline of Kensington began in 1950 following its industrial peak. Back in the 1730s, Kensington was barren land owned by England's merchant Palmer, housing fewer than 137 farmers. The turning point came a century later with James Gray's pioneering carpet factory, attracting immigrants from Ireland, England, Scotland, and Germany seeking employment. James Gray's factory thrived due to low labor costs, drawing many wealthy factory owners. Within 2 decades, Kensington was filled with 2-story brick rowhouses and steam-powered mills. It was well-built, with broad and well-paved streets. By the 1840s, the paved roads were extraordinary, a symbol of prosperity for the working class. Over 6,000 immigrants worked in carpet factories alone. In addition to carpets, Kensington flourished with glass factories, machine works, chemical plants, and leather factories. Yet, none attracted more immigrants or altered lives like the textile industry. With the advent of the groundbreaking railroad, Kensington became inundated with textile firms, housing 1/3 of Philadelphia's textile workforce. Kensington developed so rapidly that American physicist Loren Blodgett described it as a densely built-up city emerging from vacant fields in just a few years. Only 8 years after Blodgett's statement, Kensington had the highest number of textile firms, 850, employing over 35,000 people. However, this marked the beginning of its decline. During World War II, beginning in 1939, many factories shuttered, reducing their number from 850 to just 265. As World War II devastated Kensington's economy, many factories could no longer sustain production. The textile industry dwindled to only 75 firms, less than 10% of its former strength, resulting in 35,000 immigrants losing their jobs. The decline was exacerbated by the destruction of carpet factories, such as John Bromley's, the largest of its time. Surviving factories were abandoned, leaving behind empty buildings that would later become hubs for drug activity. Initially, these abandoned structures attracted many unemployed seeking shelter and opportunity. In an article titled, "How Kensington Became the Center of Philly's Opioid Crisis," the Philadelphia Inquirer describes the issue with abandoned buildings, noting, African Americans migrated from the South, joined by Puerto Ricans from rural areas, moving into now affordable housing. Race riots followed, prompting whites to flee Kensington, leaving a minority population without jobs to swell in a crumbling post-industrial area with 30,000 abandoned houses, the poorest neighborhood in America's largest city. The situation worsened and the government introduced an enterprise zone, encouraging factory owners to redevelop outside Kensington. Factories, owners, and workers left Kensington, neglected by Philadelphia officials, according to anthropologist Philippe Bourgeois, who spent 6 years studying the drug epidemic in Kensington. Bourgeois described the devastating impact on residents, saying they found themselves in a Dickensian nightmare of despair. The empty factories became an ideal place for an open-air drug market, where drugs could be stored, sold, and abused. Coincidentally, crack cocaine, affordable and offering intense highs, began spreading across America.
The drug.
Kensington, with its unemployed immigrants and abandoned buildings, saw the crack cocaine trade as an alternative source of income. Local news outlet Philly Voice observed, drugs entered the community shortly thereafter and became a significant part of the area's economy. This observation was echoed by the executive director of the Mid-Atlantic High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Program, who noted, "I'm not aware of any other place in the city where drugs are as readily available and have become as much a part of the economy as in Kensington." In poorly policed neighborhoods and abandoned buildings, residents began committing murders in broad daylight. The first heroin addicts, like myself, shot up in an alley behind the Top Cat Bar in 1969. That's when it all started. Former local resident John Mackin, now in the drug recovery industry, recalled. As John Mackin noted, this marked the beginning of escalating crime. 1 year later, the first gang member of the infamous K&A, described on Wikipedia as an Irish-American crime organization, emerged. Soon, mafias trafficking drugs from Southeast Asia followed. Kensington became flooded with drugs selling at over 20% below typical prices. The Philadelphia Inquirer reported, due to its isolation and growing Spanish-speaking population, Kensington became a natural place to sell cheaper and purer dope than that from Asia's Golden Triangle. In this open-air drug market, drug began killing many people than accident and gunshot. Sadly, longtime drug survivor John Mackin also lost his 25-year-old daughter to a heroin and fentanyl overdose. However, Kensington did not earn its nickname Badlands until 1990. Colombians, alongside Mexican gangs, began introducing game-changing heroin of such high purity that people could snort it. Alongside high-quality heroin, Colombian and local organized crime involving white and African American groups made Kensington unwelcome to police and security. Unfortunately, a new drug epidemic, opioids, swept Kensington. Opioids reduce pain, however, due to their highly addictive nature, they have been used in emergency cases such as surgeries and childbirth. Things changed decisively in 1997 when American pharmaceutical companies, influenced by money, pushed doctors to legalize opioids.
In the 1990s, researchers at a pharmaceutical company spotted an opportunity. They began pushing the idea that opioid pain medication was actually much less addictive than previously thought. Pharmaceutical companies began sending sales reps across the US and Canada, aggressively marketing much stronger opioid pain medication to doctors.
Pharmaceutical companies lobbied doctors to use the product, leading to a massive oversubscription of opioids for pain. Between 1997 and 2002, prescriptions for opioids surged from 670,000 to 6.2 million, and whoever tasted opioids had little chance to escape addiction.
I tore my knee. I just had a fucking doctor that wanted to give me all these pills.
In 2012, over 255 million opioid prescriptions were written. Soon after, opioids killed 67,000 Americans. That's more than those killed in the Vietnam War. Although the opioid epidemic was a significant problem, the Kensington drug crisis and much of the homelessness began after America launched a war on opioids.
Authorities began cracking down on doctors in Florida who'd been overprescribing opioids.
As opioids became illegal, millions of addicts who could no longer get opioids migrated to Kensington to get cheap heroin. Anthropologist Philippe Bourgeois said, newly addicted individuals, unable to obtain more pain pills from their doctors, began migrating to Kensington to use cheaper and more readily available heroin. Their children, who became addicted by stealing their parents' pain pills, also found their way to the neighborhood. Fatima Hatton last saw her mother in early March 2021 when she left her home in North Philadelphia to stay with friends. For 5 days, her mother sent text messages begging her to return, but the 16-year-old with a bright smile and quirky fashion sense responded that she just wanted to have fun. She was one of 1,276 people who died after overdosing in Philadelphia in 2021. Many of those who chased heroin in Kensington have grown up there, struggling to find food, shelter, or education. Charito Morales, a local nurse specializing in heroin addiction, remarked, "Nothing has changed. You can see people sleeping everywhere." The Philadelphia Inquirer described the current state of the neighborhood, saying, "Kensington has become a kind of Bermuda Triangle for users. Drawn to the area to get high, they somehow forget to leave and end up homeless." While most people never escape, one local resident's story stands out. "I survived Kensington. I battled addiction for 20 years, but now I'm clean and sober. I have my own home, a full-time job, and I'm raising my children. I am so grateful to God that my Kensington nightmare is finally over."